I love it. I have goosebumps just from hearing his voice. Not in the movie, just talking about the movie.
You've seen this one before? I'll make it a little harder then, shall I?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Rare Reactions. My name is Kennedy, and I've finally made it to the end of the Harry Potter franchise. Now, this moment's kind of bittersweet because I did not expect to love this franchise as much as I did. The more that I think about it, the more that I like it. So I'm going to try to squeeze out every minute of this franchise that I can with documentaries, extras, behind the scenes, whatever I can, because I love it. I don't even care. So today I'm going to be watching Creating the World of Harry Potter, The Magic Begins. Now, I think it's just like a extra behind the scenes documentary on YouTube, so we're about to find out. Let's get into it.
When I read the first book, it hadn't yet been published, and I had no idea that it would become this.
I didn't know they started in 1999.
They wanted me to
the movie's the
sing
year I
and
was
dance.
born.
Tried that if it meant that I had the opportunity to direct the movie.
Oh man.
In those days, I was just a kid who had no idea what she was doing.
I was proud I got a part, and it wasn't like I got the part of Harry Potter. It was like,
Oh
I've got a part.
man.
I had
Yeah,
no
little
idea
did
what
he
was
know
going
his
to.
life was about to friggin'...
Creating the World of Harry Potter.
Man, I
Take
got
one.
goosebumps. I love this.
Action!
When you begin the process of making any film, there are innumerable decisions that one has to make. Decisions about the script, who your director is going to be, who are going to play the
What
part.
parts you're gonna take out of the
Your
book?
cameraman
'Cause
and
from the
production
comments
designer
that you
is
guys are
gonna be,
leaving,
who your
apparently they left out a
costume
lot.
designer and visual effects supervisor is going to be. All those decisions are absolutely pivotal to making the film that you as a producer and the director's director want to make. Good decisions that have
Oh
held
my
us in good
god,
stead
they're little
as the
babies.
series has developed.
The first day of filming was at the
169
train station,
days of filming,
and
Jesus.
I just remember being incredibly nervous. I didn't sleep the night before. That
Oh, this is the
night,
director,
I felt
Chris
all the
Columbus.
intense pressure.
What a
of what I
tragic
was
name.
about to do, and I thought, if I fail, everyone in the world will hate me forever. So it's not that much pressure. A lot of what happened on that first day is a blur, but I remember getting to the set very, very early, probably an hour and a half
So, like,
before I had to be
2
there.
a.m.?
So I
You
could
gotta
be
be there at,
more
like,
awake
4.
and more alert. I felt the earlier I got there, the better chance I had of creating some sort of magic in the scene. And when I saw Dan that first day, he was very
little
nervous
baby
as well.
Dan.
It was slightly nerve-wracking.
I was
This is so weird to see them
terrified,
jump in between.
mainly because that day there were loads and loads of extras, and it was the prospect of them all knowing who I was, which was quite frightening. I'm
Right?
trying to blend
You're
in.
the star. The movie's named after you.
I'd done
Oh my God.
acting before, and Emma and Rupert done
Rupert,
nothing.
look at little baby Rupert.
listen to him.
Wallenby.
Never stepped on a film set in my life, never acted professionally before, and then you walk onto this enormous set with hundreds of crew.
This was her first
It's
role.
not easy. I thought it would be so much easier. I thought it would be, sort of a couple of takes.
And background.
I remember being quite nervous from the first scene. None of us had really that experience when we first started, and it was quite a scary world to come into.
My first day, I was in the basement on location.
This is so weird
at the
once
train
again.
station,
I can't get over it.
and I was really nervous, but turned out it was
Yeah,
quite cool.
quite cool to say the
We'll
least.
go the other end of the platform. Dan, Rupert, please.
That first day, we were trying to get Dan's eyes to be green because that's what they are in the book, and Dan was wearing
Whoa.
contact lenses. But he was allergic to them, and ultimately we made the decision to remove them. For the first day, we tried to work through it.
Are you supposed to have
for the
green
last
eyes?
scene, when he's saying goodbye to Hagrid, you can see that almost his eyes tearing and his eyes.
That was, oh my god, you can so tell.
Thanks, Hagrid.
And it feels like he's about
But it's
to
just
cry.
because the
He probably
contacts.
was, but he never complained, and we removed the contacts, and he's never had green eyes
Oh
since.
wow.
In the book, Hermione has buck
Really?
teeth. We were obsessed with making Emma more Hermione-like. So in the very first scene that we shot in the film, Emma is wearing fake teeth.
No way. How did I not notice?
But we realized after the first day of dailies that we could not do that for the entire
Oh,
piece
so
of
they
picture.
just
And we were able to cut it in a way that you really can't tell, but they're there.
Oh
If you
my
look closely
God.
enough, she's wearing false teeth in that last scene to make her more Hermione.
That is adorable.
On the first day of filming, it actually sunk in that I'm playing Harry Potter. And I
Hagrid is
realised,
huge.
Okay, this isn't a dream anymore. This is real life.
For any kid who had done a school play and wanted to be in Harry Potter, we met in England.
Wow.
I was about 9 when I started auditioning. I was already a very big fan of the books. When this rumour started going around my school that there were these auditions for Harry Potter and they were coming to school.
She
My
found
school
out through a
teacher called
rumor
Mr. Hancock, who's now left,
and then got it.
got, I think, a letter saying if there's any kids in the school that you think could act in the Harry Potter film, would you mind them auditioning? And then I had to go through a lot of auditions.
When I was reading the books, I always felt quite a connection to Ron.
I was watching Newsround, and they told us how you could audition for the Harry Potter film. A month went by, and still nothing happened. So I was on the internet and found out this one boy sent in a video of himself reading out a little script
So that's what he
in the
did.
book. So I put together this little
They better
video
show it.
thing and sent that off, and then I got an audition.
It was quite strange because, especially in like the canteen, there was like 20 other ginger people that sort of looked quite similar to me. So it was quite scary as well because I've never auditioned before. It was quite a
Man, so it was his first
we
one
narrowed
too?
down each role to about 4 or 5 kids that we screen tested. So in terms of Emma Watson, she was phenomenal. The camera loved her. She had Hermione's sense of humor. She was sharp as a
God.
whip for an 11-year-old girl.
We had a couple of screen tests where I had to learn lines. No, I don't say they were hard. No, they were quite enjoyable, actually.
Seeing Emma
That's so
Watson's
Hermione.
screen test, we were
That's
all
not
in
even Emma.
agreement that Emma was Hermione.
Literally.
For Rupert, for Ron Weasley, same sort of situation happened. He immediately popped off the screen. Rupert is a very shy kid, but he had this devilish, mischievous quality, and he had a face that I've never seen before. I mean, he was just unique, and his face was a wealth of all these emotions. He had a wonderful sense of humor, but also a real sense of soul. He really felt like he was one of the Weasley children, and we all fell in love with him for Ron Weasley.
Yeah, we did.
So we sort of found our Ron and Hermione, but we were becoming increasingly nervous because we had a film called Harry
you
Potter
didn't
and the
have Harry
Philosopher's
Potter.
Stone, and we didn't have Harry Potter. We began looking in November of 1999 before we had a director, and it was quite scary because here we were in July and we were shooting in September and we didn't have Harry.
There was a sense of pressure because everybody was talking about it. The press was writing about who's going to play Harry Potter. The studio was constantly on the phone with us. Have you found him yet? Have you found him yet? Our casting director was going crazy trying to find him.
It was interminable, you know, looking and looking and looking and not
Man.
finding.
After we had looked at countless
The search
tapes
was
and
worth
seen
it.
countless kids, I remember popping in a tape of David Copperfield.
Was that him?
And I saw Dan's scene, and I thought, this kid really has the potential to be Harry
So it
Potter.
wasn't his
But
first
there was
role.
really a general reluctance from the parents.
My mum and dad both went, no, you know, that's far too much of an upheaval of his life, so he...
Oh, yeah,
no,
'cause
no, we can't.
Was
let that
7, 8
happen.
movies?
And then next to him was Marcia, his wife, and the boy at the end was his son, Daniel. So went, sat down in the row in front, and I paid very little attention to the play. I was always looking at over my shoulder
Always seeing
at the boy
the
behind.
boy who
He
lived.
just had this quality, which was an old soul in a young body.
I noticed David Heyman turning round to me every so often. I was like, who's that man? And then
That's the producer.
in the interval, he came up, him and Steve Close came up, and they introduced themselves.
My
I'm
dad
the guy
just went,
making
okay,
this
maybe. He saw it as a sign.
And action.
That's a dragon egg.
What is it?
That's what that is.
What is that?
Dragon egg.
He looks so
remember I auditioned
different.
for this whole scene about a dragon egg in the first film. I think Chris Columbus broke a real egg
Why does he look so different?
and made me laugh.
His
Dan's
hair?
screen test was amazingly charming and soulful, and he was inexperienced as an actor, but there was one thing that Dan had that you couldn't teach anyone, which was this sort of haunted quality.
If you heard your mum screaming like that, just about to be killed, you wouldn't forget in a hurry.
I just saw it in his eyes in more serious moments. And that was the moment, I think, that we all felt when we saw that screen test to hire Dan as Harry Potter.
Yeah, the glasses.
Dad comes in and says, I've just spoken to David Heyman and you've got the part.
And I cried, and I was in
Yeah,
the
I've got
bath.
goosebumps.
Why did you cry?
No, I cried with happiness.
So we ended up with our three, and I don't think we could have done
No,
better.
they really
The
couldn't.
three of them together were just perfect. They really felt like the characters had jumped from the book.
This is Dan and Rupert on the day that they got the job. We bought all three of them here, and they came into my office.
And
The last time we came in, I thought it was going to be another audition, but they took us to the producer's, David Heyman's office.
David Heyman tried to make it, tried to
So
go
happy.
into a great big paragraph, and then Chris Columbus just came out with it and said that we wanted to cast you as Ron and Hermione in the film.
And I just stood there looking blank at them for about 5 minutes until it really sunk in. I was like, oh my God, I just stood there.
it's making me emotional.
No, this is all a dream. Pinch me.
It was just a complete shock because it was just so unexpected, but it was just such a cool day.
Here's them being photographed on that first day.
I remember very little about it. I remember that Terry O'Neill, I believe, was the photographer who took the first photos of us, and he
Oh my
continually
God, I feel
referred
like
to
my
us as
smile's gonna jump off
the
my
ginger
face.
boy, the one with glasses, and the girl. Because, of course, nobody knew our names then.
I look back on those photographs now and I feel like that's a different person. I feel like I don't know that girl.
So ultimately, you end up shooting scenes with children for around 4 hours a day. That's not very much. And it necessarily means that our schedule is longer.
You know, the longest shoot I'd done was 11 weeks, and suddenly we were on for 11 months.
Whoa, that's a jump.
I'll never forget just walking onto that set and kind of the middle of nowhere in northern England and just thinking, I've never been so nervous.
I
in all my
recognise that
life.
voice.
I mean, like, you got the big steam train, you know, all the lights,
Oh
hundreds
my
of
God.
extras, hundreds of crew. So we kind of thought, oh, is this what every film's like, where you've got thousands of crew, or you know, like most films last about 6 weeks, not 9 months.
It's all that acting experience because he seemed completely
my God.
unfazed by.
I did not
I
expect.
mean, walking onto a big film set is a scary thing if
Oh,
you're expected to do
I'm not-
something that they
I don't even know what to say. That just took the words out of my mouth.
It doesn't get any less
I
scary.
never
really, the
expected to
first
see
day.
Hagrid with that
It
hair.
seemed completely cool to
Holy
it
cow.
all.
You say hey Hagrid a little earlier? As soon as he says hey Hagrid. A little higher on the lamp, Robbie. And action! Right now, first years this way.
Robbie Coltrane was Joe's idea, because we wanted somebody to play Hagrid who we knew who could be tough and dangerous, but at the same time
Lovable.
was warm and vulnerable and very funny. And Robbie is all those
Yeah.
things.
Right then, follow me.
There was just no question of not doing it. You knew it was, so long as they were true. to the
Again,
book, it was
just
gonna be wonderful.
not ready.
Wide shooting. Stereo sound.
Okay, class, listen to me. Welcome to your first flying lesson. I want you to raise your hand over the broom.
For the flying lesson, I remember saying action, and half of the kids started performing. The other half of the kids are staring into space. We had to stop, and I said, you know, action means we start
Oh.
shooting. And I thought to myself,
So he has to teach him
my,
everything.
This is the beginning of a very long shoot.
So, Peter, this is everybody's moving on action. This thing.
Rupert, go to your left. Other left.
I don't think any of the kids will disagree with me when I say that they were extremely inexperienced in terms of being on a film set and doing film acting.
We had to cast a lot of children for Harry Potter 1, and Chris and David were just as meticulous casting for students as the other roles. But actually, one of the great things was when we were auditioning,
Casting
especially the
director,
children,
good job.
you didn't
I
have
praise
to
you.
explain any of the characters because they knew them better than I did.
I was just such a fan of the story. I wanted to dress up like a wizard, and I wanted to go to Hogwarts, and I knew the best way to do that would be to get a part in the film. And it was nothing to do with my career at the time. It was just a little boy wanting to be in Harry Potter.
Oh
When I
my.
first started, we shot a scene where Neville's broomstick takes off, and then
Yeah.
I read it in the script, but I don't know. I had no idea what to expect. You know, I'd never done anything like that in my life.
This
Hold
was his
on, let's
first
start at the
scene.
beginning, still rolling. Switch your hands. Matt, right. Remember to look to your right, look down, be really scared and hover.
To come and have stunt department put you in a harness and strap you to a broomstick, and then you're flying around on this roller
Imagine
coaster
that.
type thing.
Got?
Even as an
And they call it
adult,
work. It was
I would love to
brilliant.
do that.
All right, shooting the plane. Please stay back.
I remember the first time when we went on location. I think it was to Annie, and we were awful. That's really what I've got to think. I mean, we were messing around all the time. You should imagine having a massive group of 11-year-old kids just running about, trying to keep them controlled. And just feel bad for all the people. They're trying to make a film, and we thought we were on a holiday camp. We were having a great time.
The first person hired was Stuart Craig, because this world had to be created.
Honestly, your first reaction is fear. I thought, oh my God, how can I possibly do this, really?
Pulled it off
Starting
times
with
a million.
Stuart Craig was one of the best decisions that we made on those pictures, and Stuart's just a genius.
He really has brought Hogwarts and Joe's universe to life. It is his creation.
And this was, in fact, her layout, drawn at a hotel dining table of Hogwarts. All the major ingredients, the Dark Forest you see there, the castle, the Quidditch pitch, the Black Lake, Hogsmeade, everything is on there, the complete world. Without a little hand-drawn map, I would never have got to grips with it in the way that we did. It was the most terrific gift.
Boom! On working on the film was committed to finding a way to make the material not only cinematic, but also a magical, faithful retelling of the first book.
Hand out, Dan. Freeze in that position. Sean, same with you. Don't move. And action!
David Heyman was a wonderful collaborator and very passionate about the film. And I think that's why David and I got along so well. There was nothing else in our minds except making.
He reminds me of Kevin
Chris
Nealon. I don't know if any of you know Kevin Nealon,
He
but
respected my passion for the material. He respected the fact that I was there before anybody. He respected that Joe and I had a very good relationship. But there are many people in his position who would have cast me aside. At that time, I was a young producer, and what the director said went. But Chris wasn't having any of that. Not only to keep me around, but he was very supportive. And I learned an awful lot from him.
it's probably why it worked out so well.
David and I had the same vision for the films, and that vision being that the first film was more of this wonderful sort of rich version of Hogwarts, this storybook world that we were
man,
creating.
I need to watch it again.
And as we got into Chamber of Secrets,
I've still only seen it the one time I
started
reacted
chip
to it.
away a little bit, and we got darker with each film.
That question of what is this world, what does it look like, you always start with the novel. Because J.K. Rowling talks about the great antiquity of the world, I immediately thought, where would you go on location? What exists from that era? Well, there were bits of Oxford and bits of Cambridge, some of those colleges, and also the great Gothic European cathedrals.
We were able to go to various churches and universities throughout England and create the whole world.
The creating of the castle carried with it this inherent problem of mixing real locations with bits that we had designed. Given that real locations are often disappointing, they're full of bits that don't quite fit the story that you're trying to tell. So it's the blending of these two worlds, and I found that very difficult.
Once again, pulled it off.
And I think in some respects I have to say we failed. And I'm thinking specifically of the exterior of Hogwarts. When it was all put together, it didn't amount to a really successful, iconic silhouette, which is you want it to work on this kind of simple level.
It was like
what has happened
evil
since
Disneyland.
then, on all the subsequent movies, we have slowly improved the silhouette of those things. We've taken away
So you're
some
saying
of
just
the
in the
real
first?
locations.
And
Yeah, I gotta watch it again.
Featured part in one is less. So Stuart has reshaped and rebuilt Hogwarts as the films have developed to become more to his liking, I think.
Rupert, hold your head up. Dan, eyes a little wider. He's gone. Look to them.
Yeah.
But this is important. This is about the sorcerer stuff. Just a little faster. Head up. Eyes wider. She just told you he's gone. Action.
He's gone? But this is important. Yeah.
You gotta look to them. He's gone. Head up.
In the early days, I had to find a way wrangling these kids to deliver some sort of performance because they couldn't have been any greener.
It's a lot harder than everyone thinks. And there are 50 billion, trillion, million things going on at the same time that you have to think about, like hitting your marks, getting your line right at the right time, making sure you step into the light so that the face doesn't shadow you. All that kind of stuff.
He's gone? Now? But this is important. This is about the Philosopher's Stone.
Okay. Still rolling. Hold your head up.
When you find out that he's gone, this is the worst thing that could possibly happen, because that means you're dead.
In the first movie, I always
Man.
laughed and said we should put a camera on Chris, because what the kid's performance really was
Mark
a
Radcliffe?
reflection of what he was doing and what he was bringing out.
Is he related to Daniel? Was there some nepotism in this?
Should we go from he's gone?
If so, it worked out.
He's gone? But this is important. This is about the Sorcerer's Stone. Okay, yeah.
Eyes wide, stronger.
Man, I'm finding myself
was so
like taking the
wonderful
director's
because
notes
he often
and
had
trying to do
shut
them myself.
down. Rupert, stop smiling.
No, don't smile.
Emma, look this way.
You guys should look at each other after he's gone.
Okay.
Okay.
Somebody said that the difference between children and children on a set is that children on a set actually do what you tell them to do.
That was no stranger Hagrid met in the village. It was Snape, which means he knows how to get past Fluffy. And with Dumbledore gone...
Good afternoon.
Alan Rickman was so fantastic.
When I thought that Snape was bad.
You want to be careful. People will think you're up to something.
The way he delivers his
having to
lines.
remind myself that it's only a film, it's only a film,
Right.
it's only a film, nothing's real. But it was
Yeah, just
terrifying.
even watching the documentary about it, it's like giving me chills. What a legend.
Alan Rickman, to me, was always Snape, because Joe Rowling showed me some early drawings. She'd done this sketch of Snape and looked just like Alan Rickman. He was a little reluctant because he has done this particular type of villain in the past, so he didn't want to be typecast as this villain.
Little did he know.
David and I took Alan to dinner to convince him he had to play the role. And I
Man,
remember
imagine
the
if he
car
didn't
ride through
take it.
London with David driving, with Alan sitting in the front seat and me sitting in the back, and David almost got in a car accident. And I remember saying, David, don't kill us before Alan says no. You know, because we just expected him to say no, but for some reason, 2 days later, he came back and said yes.
I don't think I had much choice in the matter. Lots of godchildren and
That's even his normal voice.
Not only excited, I think insistent.
He knows how to
What
get past
a
Fluffy.
legend.
And with Dumbledore gone...
Good afternoon. When you see this movie, you're not going to see all of these huge
I love it.
mechanics and the months of editing. You're just going to watch
I have
a
goosebumps
close-up
just from hearing his
on
voice.
two little boys and a little girl's
Not in the
face
movie, just
at the
talking
centre of
about the
story,
movie.
and unless that reads, the film won't work.
Dan,
Film when it's
remember to
wet.
enunciate. Keep your head up. Rupert, don't smile. And Emma, don't put your head out forward. Action!
A problem in the early days, and the problem all the kids had, was this sense of total delight at being there, so they could never stop smiling, even if it was a serious scene.
That'd be my biggest problem.
Giggling problem. And I remember Alan Rickman, the first one, told me to relax my face and just not think of anything.
Oh my god. That'd be so hard. I'm gonna try to act distressed.
Didn't really work, to be honest. But yeah, he tried.
Take 10. A camera.
Can't.
C camera.
C camera.
Set.
Set and action.
In the early days, you might do 10 takes. You might be lucky to get the one you really wanted once.
Because you have actual film.
Then they might have to go off to school and you may not get it again. So we would run 3 and 4 cameras.
A camera. Okay, guys. I don't want you to see camera.
Oh my god, yeah.
Okay? Just be reading and studying. Andy, reading?
It was important for me to always have a camera on one of them in case one of them was coming down off of a chocolate rush, or they lost their energy, or they were getting tired, or they were looking into the camera. God knows there were a million things going on.
And guys, you're interested. Rupert, you shouldn't be laughing at the end when you find out that Dan's gonna potentially be...
Oh my god.
And
He
the
was
key
laughing.
was for cinematographer John Seal was shooting multiple
Walden.
cameras, because I never knew when the kids were going to deliver the performance that I needed.
The Sorcerer's Stone.
Guys, you're laughing.
So if you look at the first film, you see it's very cutty. In other words, we cut to a close-up of a kid, and then I cut away to someone else. We were incapable of getting an entire scene in context. So John's philosophy of shooting 3 cameras basically helped me to obtain a performance here and a performance here, unlike any other way we should shoot a movie. It's almost documentary style, and John really knew how to do that. And I had always admired his work, and this was a really golden opportunity for me to work with him.
And action!
The overall look of the film that Chris and I talked about was retaining a magic of Hogwarts, and then, of course, the adventures within it. We wanted a drama that is written into the books. We didn't want to lose that. We didn't want to make it too sort of glossy and open. So it was a very delicate balance between making it a reality film and a magical film. And I hope we've done it.
I always thought that it was more of a magical film, but after watching it, it's a lot more realistic than I thought.
Professor McGonagall, listen to everything she said.
What we needed from McGonagall was someone that you were intimidated by, but someone who had a real sense of warmth and heart. And that's exactly who Maggie is. And I thought this is perfect for McGonagall.
And move, Maggie.
You meet her in the beginning of the film. She's in the scene where they're walking up the stairs, and she was intimidating. I mean,
Yeah,
she was
you don't really like
intimidating
her
to
at
the
first.
crew because she's so smart. She's so brilliant. And the kids could sense that. But that was good. At that point, she was the disciplinarian.
She slowly wins you over.
Her name is Scottish, so the whole idea of making her witch's hat more like a Scottish tam, that was actually her idea. She had some great ideas.
Professor McGonagall, okay.
I tried to keep all the kids really classically British boarding school. Funnily enough, J.K. Rowling said that the kids did not wear uniforms. So we ended up testing Daniel in regular clothes with a wizard gown and
Oh, I wanna
uniforms,
see it.
and everybody went for the uniforms because graphically it was much prettier.
Devin, take a little.
They better show a
tiny
little
step
bit of
to
it.
the Right. Good. Excellent. Good.
No.
Is that it? No.
Okay, there you go.
I was really going for less of a contemporary look, because I always wanted the film to have some sort of timeless quality. So their wardrobe, I remember their wardrobe test, dressing them as these adorable little English school children, and they looked amazing.
Harry Potter has come to Hogwarts.
Tom was probably, out of everyone in those early days, the most experienced actor.
Really?
Crab, Goyle. And I'm not.
I'd done a few films before and a few TV things, and I was purely up there because my agent has said you should go.
Perfect casting.
To start with.
I had no idea what it was, no idea. I was just went for an
He
audition
never
for
read
it,
'em?
and everyone was talking about it.
I remember one of the first things they asked us at the interview is, what is your favourite scene in the book? And there was a row of us, about 7 of us, and of course
It was
I
the only one.
hadn't read it, so I just, the guy next to me said, oh, Gringotts, I love the trolls. So I just said, yeah. Same as this guy.
Oh
I
my
love the
God, that would've
trolls,
been
they're
me.
brilliant. And straight away, Chris saw straight through that, and I'm pretty sure that gave him a little internal laugh, so that could have helped. I don't know.
At one point, when we
That's
were trying
such
to find
a
who's going to play Harry
Slytherin
Potter,
way to
I thought
answer
Tom
that, too.
was so good. Let me
like, oh, yeah,
put some makeup
same.
on him and put a scar on him and a black wig and see if he could do Harry Potter. So we tested
No.
Tom as Harry Potter in that succession of screen tests. But we realized after the screen test we felt was better for Draco Malfoy.
Out of the whole book, I'd rather to be Malfoy than anyone else, because I get to be a baddie.
I love him. I actually like being a Slytherin.
Back again, Harry?
My first scene with Taras, he came on and he introduced himself. That was quite scary at first because there are quite a lot of people who've worked with him before, and you've heard things, and you're like, oh, okay. But when he gets on set, you're like, okay, you're quite frightening.
Was he? I guess to a kid, yeah. To me, he's...
Do not need a cloak.
Oh my God, that is a different actor.
Invisible, Harry.
When it came time to cast Dumbledore, we needed a father figure who had a sense of mischief and had a twinkle in his eye. So we thought Richard would be a perfect Dumbledore.
Let me give you a clue.
And
I
Richard,
didn't even
by the way,
notice.
Is my godfather. My father
So
used
there
to
was
be
some
his
nepotism.
agent. He was his best friend. So Richard was a very significant part of my life growing up. And he was a true eccentric, a real character, a larger-than-life character. And that was what you wanted Dumbledore to
Wow.
Most what? Most desperate desires of the heart. Well done, Richard.
I mean, I feel
remember
bad,
Dave
but
and I going to
I
dinner
think
with
I like
Richard,
the second
and
Dumbledore
he
more.
was reluctant to play the role.
I must admit that, it took me months to say yes to it. I wasn't necessarily very keen on doing it.
What really sold it was not me. I wish I could claim such power, but no, it wasn't me. It was the fact that his granddaughter
Love the
Ella
books.
read the books.
That'll
My
always
granddaughter
get
called
you.
me and said, Papa, she said, if you don't play Dumbledore, I will never speak to you again. And I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it.
That's a good
She's
granddaughter right
wrapped up
there.
in it. You know, and I love the book. I love the script. It's beautifully written and beautiful dialogue in it. I see that you, like many before you, have discovered the delights of the mirror of Erised.
In hiring a writer, we wanted somebody who could capture the spirit of Joe's writing, and so I sent the book out to a few writers. But I had around, I can't remember, 7 first editions of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, which I sent out to many writers who passed on it.
Each one of those books is worth like $25,000 now, so the screenwriters who didn't
Now
do
they're probably worth
the book ended up getting
2.5
paid anyway.
million.
We hired Steve Clovis, who at the time I suppose was an unusual choice in as much as he had never written any family adventures, as it were. But he was a writer who I loved. And
man, it's always someone that comes in from a different background that adds the most, that you wouldn't expect.
Probably the most challenging
Love
thing
it.
I've ever done. Because
Steve
people are
Kloves
so
is
familiar
him,
with
huh?
the book and feel so connected to it that you want to, you don't want them to feel cheated in any way.
Joe Rowlings, Steve Clovis, David Heyman, and myself worked on that script together a lot.
we sat and went through the script page by page by page. And slowly the film that Chris ultimately made began to take shape.
Joe Rowling's probably been my greatest asset because from the beginning she was extremely supportive and understanding of what I was dealing with. And
how much
over the
input did J.K. Rowling have on this film series?
She's made herself available, been extremely generous with her time and answering my questions. She's driven me crazy at times because since this is a series of books, a familiar refrain became, I can't tell you that because that's going to happen in book 7. But she would tell me when I was on the right path.
I think when we were making the first film, she had showed us in manuscript form the 4th book. And she just, she gave it, I know she gave it to Steve, and Steve then took it on the plane, and he realized, oh my goodness, here I am carrying this. I think he was really nervous. Here's Steve on the first, at the Mondrian Hotel.
Oh my.
Looking much younger than he does now. And that's Chris on the phone back there. And that was the first, God, Steve does look younger, right? I'm going to show him this later on today. We're still working on the script for Harry 7 Part 2.
Oh wow, so this was before they put out the last one?
And Mr. Harry Potter has his key. In the first film, I particularly remember the scene where Dan has to come up wanting access to his vault, and Chris wanted Dan to kind of look shocked.
And when you first walk in, that thing really scares you when you first enter frame.
Isn't that the leprechaun?
But Dan really was not fazed by anything. So Chris said to me, on the next take, when you lean over, make him jump.
Look me in the eye when I'm talking to you!
Yeah, as a kid.
Does Mr. Harry Potter have his key? It did not have the desired effect at all. He just burst out.
Oh my God.
Hey, I told you, one or the other.
Yeah, it's one or the other. Terrified or it's hilarious.
I was made to look very different as the bank teller. Big ears, the nose, the spectacles, the teeth, the contact lenses. So, as that character, there was nothing of Warwick left.
Except the
and
height.
Nick Dudman and the makeup effects department took care of that.
The challenge on the Potter films at the beginning was very definitely the goblins. The trouble with something like goblins, most of the designs you look at...
Exactly, that's what I was thinking.
And if you say, no, it's got to look new, you find the avenues you're going down get
They got
narrower
Luna's
and
lion
narrower.
head in the back.
So, in the end, we decided the most important thing was character. Make each of these an interesting character and goblinize that character.
That's
so
smart.
that there isn't a set look for goblins any more than there's a set look for human beings.
Wow.
We then decided we would do all the pieces in silicon, but it was a bit of a gamble. Silicon at that point was still pretty iffy, and there were a lot of questions about it chemically that I wasn't totally convinced by at that point. Now it's very much a production line, very straightforward and lovely. But this was one of the first occasions where we were using it. There were moments where we were going, why isn't this setting? Why isn't this working? But we cracked it, and we learned a lot.
Chris Columbus was very interested in the idea of the misery of Harry's situation.
Great idea. That's essential to the story.
There's no such thing as magic.
The cupboard under the stairs seemed all the more desperate if he was in a huge urban sprawl. And the best and most graphic way to illustrate that huge urban sprawl was identical modern houses.
Privet Drive had to feel like this mean, awful place, and so we intentionally looked for the place that felt like it would kill any creativity.
We didn't finish on the location. We came here to the studio. We rebuilt those houses here, exactly reproduced them. I think now there are 5 houses on either side of the street.
I wonder who lives
But
there
it's
now.
Extended in a map
Imagine
limitlessly
living in one of
to the
those.
horizon. And that set that we built then has been standing for all 7
Oh my
movies.
God.
Privet Drive was fun to do.
It's like the
I
Victor's
remember
Village.
we did spend some time looking for the ugliest sofas, the worst tiles for the kitchen, and lots of nasty pictures on the walls, and lots of certificates of Dudley's achievements, like swimming a quarter of a width
Man,
in
the
the swimming
thoughts
pool.
that go into this.
And I remember they asked
Oh my
when I
God.
got the part if I could
Dudley.
give my baby photos in. And I came in, I was doing my whole history in front of me, like my first bike.
No
and there was
way.
all these baby pictures everywhere of me in this tacky house.
You will drag him in by the ear, and as you're being dragged in,
Oh my God, this is too much. I love this though.
You're thinking about whoopee cushions again.
The oddest thing early on was trying to perform with the owls, because the owls are not actors. There were some shots where I had to look at an owl and the owl had to look at me. And the owls kept looking at the cameras because the camera was coming around, and so the owl
looks
thought
like
the camera was very, very interesting. It was much more interesting in the
The
camera
actress
than looking
from
at me.
she's in
So
Talladega
the end,
Nights,
we
the
hung
lady who
dead
gets
mice
drunk up in
from
the
my apron.
private suite.
So the owls absolutely looked at me. That's you should never be on any cameras.
Oh,
It
you
was
could
a
tell
very,
Dudley's
very
so
interesting
happy.
start, actually. You realised how surreal the very action of playing it was.
That was the first time I worked with Fiona. Although now we're like an old married couple now, you know. We're very familiar with each other. It's funny.
It's so weird seeing the characters that I hate in real life as their normal selves.
Palm of your hand.
It's like, I'm sorry,
Set
but
and action. Dan. Say, don't burn my letter. Oh, is that?
Did he not hear that? Come on, Daniel.
I remember walking into this great hall the first time and just not believing it. It was just so
Man.
amazing. It's a
Sixth time I've gotten
magic place to
goosebumps. Just imagining walking into there
Early
for the
on
first
in the
time.
process, there was talk about us actually shooting the Great Hall in a location.
Christchurch College in Oxford.
Oh, that's
have
not studio.
A great hall was the inspiration for this one, but it wouldn't have made a good set.
So, yep.
So we decided to build. the great
Spoke too
hall.
soon.
You know, I found out we were doing it in the studio. And I was like, how are they going to create something so vast? You know, will it be as big as it should be?
There was a lot of talk about the size of the Great Hall. I seem to remember that Joe Rowling wrote about 900 kids gathering there for lunch and dinner, and we realized that that was impossible
90.
to do. So we whittled it down to a place that would probably hold about 400
Okay.
500 kids. And that felt
Yeah.
large enough.
Worked out fine.
I'll say 1, 2, 3, and action. The food appears. Set. 1, 2, 3, action.
Oh yeah, I remember
I
seeing
think
that
What's
in my
good
first
about
reaction.
it is that
There was so
even
much
though
food.
it's a source of so much magic, it's firmly rooted in
My mouth
reality.
is watering.
And I think that makes
I
the
haven't
magic
eaten yet
even
today.
stronger when it unexpectedly grows out of something that is seemingly so real.
I mean, most sets are kind of literally all polystyrene and fake wood and everything, but a lot of the stuff that's in the Great Hall is real stone, real wood.
We built a
Was all
lot
the
of
food
fire
real?
into the Great Hall, so it just had this sense of warmth and magic.
Man, it really did.
However, the floating candlesticks were a bit of a problem because we decided to do them practically as opposed to creating them in a CGI
Which I'd
environment.
love.
So we
Always
placed
choose
hundreds
practical.
of
Hear that,
floating
directors?
candles above tables with tiny strings, and all of those candles had to be lit before each take, and all of them were on a sort of a pulley system where they moved up and down so they felt like they were floating.
Oh, wow.
It's not real, the ceiling. It's just bewitched to look like the night sky. I read about it in Hogwarts, a history.
When we did the shot where we craned down through all of these floating candles, you couldn't see the strings. Everyone in the screening room applauded that day. It was just stunning. Stunning work from John Seal.
It was incredible. It was amazing. Like, no acting required.
Come on, guys. This one will be the last day. No matter what happens. Focus. Big reaction. That's almost lunchtime for you guys, yeah.
Quiet, please. Be ready. Thank you.
The only problem when you've got loads of people is you find that the breaks aren't as much because they've got to move so many people out and so many people back in again.
Man, I can't imagine going through all this as a little kid.
I'm tremendously kind of amazed by the level of
I wonder
commitment
why
and
Emma
control that the
Watson's so
kids have got.
freaking smart now.
I would never have imagined, just from going to school, to drop my daughter off, that you could get together that many kids without chaos breaking out, and yet they all seem very dedicated to what they're doing, very focused, very clear, and they take direction amazingly well. And there's 300 kids in the room.
Hold on, everybody pause. Dan, take a little step back. Rupert, take a little. You guys okay focus-wise?
Chris was in the Great Hall with about 350 children, and if one came up and talked to him, he would automatically just sit down as though he'd known them all his life.
Because you know each kid is going to try to talk to the director to try to get their part amped up. And he just...
I don't know how he does it. If I was him and I had 100 kids running around, I'd just flip. But he's kept his cool all the way down, and he's a really nice
Perfect director.
Rupert, you're really terrified.
He has helped us through the whole entire film. I've learned so much. I feel like I've learned so much through the acting experience.
Just through the first film, too, right? 7 more.
Chris had this tremendous enthusiasm, which is what was very much needed on those first 2 films, because, you know, if we come onto the first 2 films and the director had been horrible, I don't think any of us ever would have acted again.
And cut.
When we began the process of finding our director, we spoke to several really fine directors. Even Steven Spielberg expressed interest, and that was, you know, for me, quite remarkable.
What happened?
But ultimately, he had other projects that he'd been working on for a while.
In 1999?
And he decided to work on them.
When I read the book, it was just
wow.
at the beginning
Imagine
of the phenomenon.
Spielberg.
And I
It's
called my
almost like-
agent and I said, you know, I think I
almost
would
glad he
really like
didn't.
to make a movie of this material. I really,
As
really
weird as that
responded
sounds.
to it. I saw the movie in my head when I read the first book, and I saw the world. And my agent said, well, you're going to have to get in line. There are about 50 other directors who also want to make this
said,
type of
okay.
movie. And I was completely sort of stunned because I hadn't been following it that closely. And
Oh,
I
he thought it
and
was
then
just
she
some
sent me
niche.
a list of the people who were, you know, in contention, and I thought there is no way, shape, or form I'm going to get this job. Rob Reiner was on the list. Steven Spielberg was on the list. Everyone was on the list. And she said, Warner Brothers is willing to have an interview with you.
Chris
You really got to rock that
arrived at a
interview.
meeting with a script. He himself had taken 2 weeks on his own,
That's how
writing
you
on
won him
spec
over.
a draft of the script. And he'd really thought through how he
What he
wanted
would...
to
Oh, my God.
approach it.
I think at that moment, they
Did he direct every single movie?
probably realized that I was very, very, very serious about making a
Comment
great
below, 'cause
film
I'm
out of
super
this material.
curious.
We met a lot of people, and ultimately it came down to studio comfort, and also it's the person who had the most passion for the
Oh, man, I
material.
love that.
And it was Chris Columbus who emerged as the favorite,
And it worked
got
out.
the job.
I got a call from one of the executives who said, "You're our guy. We're going to go with you." So it was an amazing moment. It was an amazing moment because I remember walking into the kitchen of my house and telling my wife, "I got the job. I got the Potter gig. We're moving to London."
This is Chris.
Goosebumps again.
Down in his head covered, and with Chris's young daughter. The amazing thing about Chris, one of the amazing things about Chris, during the pre-production period, his family lives in San Francisco.
Yeah, I was gonna say he
would
sounded American.
fly every Friday to San Francisco and come back for Monday morning because he felt it was important for him to spend the weekend with his kids. Pretty impressive as far as I'm concerned.
Man, that's so
And
admirable.
This is what it made him look like.
Zero sleep.
That's the door.
Go, guys, all together. All together.
Oh, the chess scene.
My favourite set is the chess set, which is amazing.
This is so cool to walk on, man.
Yeah.
It's so great when it's lit
Set,
up.
and there's a door. Probably my favorite example of Stuart Craig's production design was the gigantic chess set. I just loved the attention to detail and the look of those pieces. I mean, they looked as if they were made out of real stone. I wanted to take all of them back home for my office in San Francisco because they're just stunning.
Now, don't be offended or anything, but neither of you are particularly good at chess.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you loser.
It was also one of my favorite scenes in the book and the film because Ron actually sacrifices himself.
Just tell us what to do. All right then. Harry, you take the empty bishop square, and Hermione, you'll be the queenside horse.
Fitting.
And as for me, I'll be a knight. That's Ron's kind of moment, and it's the first time he really takes charge. And he gets to ride this great big horse.
That was really exciting, because I got to sit on the horse. I remember really enjoying that. Actually, the coolest thing about it was when the pieces got smashed, because they actually exploded.
Oh, wow.
I think we've actually still got a broken piece of the, I think it was the horse. So that was cool.
Can I walk? Let me walk it with him once, Denise, and then.
That was certainly one of my favorite scenes to shoot.
Sweater,
in the picture
though.
because it was just beautifully designed by Stuart Craig and beautifully lit by John Seale.
Once I make my move, the Queen will take me. Then you're free to check the King.
Rupert was so strong in that moment.
Harry, you take the empty bishop square.
We shot that as we were getting closer to the end of the picture, and at that time the kids were really starting to come into their own as actors, and the kids delivered just wonderful performances.
Just tell us what to do.
Oh, he's even got the Yeezy rips in it. Fire.
We all felt that Diagon Alley looked like the Dickensian world, so that was a bit of a challenge because you think, is there anywhere in
that's
London
gotta
where
be
we
a
can
set.
actually shoot
No.
Diagon Alley? Well, the reality is that world that we think still exists somewhere, there's very few places look like that, and if they do look like that, there's always a phone shop or something modern or a grocery store that really that you can fix, but you can't really recreate it completely. So we realized we'd have to build it, and Stuart built it in a way that had a sense of forced perspective about it. So it appears to go on forever.
As you can see, the street ends in a green screen. So in the book, your impression is of a much longer, much more complicated street. For the scenes that we have to shoot, this is sufficient. It's a great challenge in the detail, and as you can see, there aren't any vertical lines in it whatsoever.
Really, yeah, it's all...
Getting it just right so it looked like a Dickensian street, I think that was the hardest challenge.
I had an absolutely obsessive assistant on the first film, one who was deeply into Harry Potter, and she masterminded Diagon Alley with everything catalogued.
She frickin' killed
it. We took all the names from the book and just sort of expanded them.
Oh, Jenny, do you want to do the upstairs bit as well?
One of the things you don't really see in the movie, each shop had a shopkeeper that looked like they matched their shops. So there was a wizard apothecary, there was a wizard candy maker, and when you saw these characters all dressed up on the first day of Diagon Alley with Stuart's set and all the props and the set dressing, everybody had big
She looks
smiles
like
on
Chrissy
their faces
Mayer.
that day.
I know probably not even two of you know who that is, but I'll throw a picture.
It was a very, very magical place to shoot.
John Hurt's appearance on that moving ladder was a good, simple idea.
Hello?
Yeah, that definitely sets the tone.
He comes, just sort of arrives on a trolley up with the bookshelves and to stand top of the screen, and it was a sensational shot. You couldn't, no actor could ask for a much better entrance.
I wondered when I'd be seeing you, Mr. Potter.
J.K. Rowling came down to Diagon Alley, when we were filming that, to have a look at all the sets, and she's really nice.
When she came to visit Diagon Alley, I was told that she literally had a sort of tear in her eye because she couldn't believe how it was.
How is her baby coming to life? Goosebumps again. Number 8.
If I use the beginning of one shot and the end of another. Set and action!
If you took 1 million people and J.K. Rowling was one of them, then she'd probably be the only one out of those people to think up Quidditch. And when I read it, I'm like, oh, that is so cool. I wish I thought of that.
Beginning of take 1 and the end of take 4. It's okay.
Quidditch was a challenge because I was being introduced to a new sport. So I really wanted to fundamentally understand how Quidditch works. It's a lot of hours spent with Joe Rowling, understanding the rules, writing down the rules. I have notebooks
JK's husband?
Quidditch rules. And the other challenge was making those rules accessible and understandable for an audience as well. And then the visual demands of making Quidditch real were very difficult.
Yeah, 1999
because of the
or
time
2000.
constraint we were under, and because the sets where some of the visual effects needed to take place couldn't be built in time, some of those sequences were pushed toward the end of our schedule. And as we were doing them, we realized that we would have far less time in post-production to create visual effects that we would all be happy with.
This was a very unusual film. I think we shot for about 9 months, so even though they'd finished the main unit shooting, the Quidditch match was a completely separate unit that was filming pretty much right up until the end.
We were sort of behind the 8 ball because we didn't start shooting until June, and it had to be finished in October. So what we did was to make a cartoon animation of the entire Quidditch match prior to actually photographing it, and then we'd go in and say, okay, now we're photographing this shot that fits into this hole exactly. So the hard part, the daunting part, is actually creating a scene and have it cut before you actually start shooting. And we've never done it before. Now it's fairly easy to even preview it and pre-visit and do all the stuff we did, but back then it wasn't.
I have to say that was one of the scenes in the film I love seeing, but one of the scenes that I know if I could go back and do it again, I would love to go back and do it again, because I would do it, I would spend so much more time, I would give myself more time to do the visual effects the way they should be done.
Gryffindor wins!
Was it just that whole end scene?
It's rare to shoot a film
Not end scene, but...
And that can cause problems, you know, especially with young kids who grow up rather quickly. And if you're really alert, you can see the difference in Daniel Radcliffe. He was a little older in this scene to that scene.
Oh,
and of course,
they're
what was
saying
making it
scenes.
worse is that Daniel's voice was getting deeper and deeper each day.
We're not allowed to do magic away from Hogwarts. I'm Harry Potter.
The pressure really was a combination of post-production and pre-production on Chamber of Secrets, overlapping those two things, because Harry Potter is all about beating the clock to a certain level, because you didn't want to wait another year to start Chamber of Secrets because the kids age so quickly that they'd be too old for their roles in that particular book.
Yeah, and it just gets
So
worse
the
and worse with
challenge
each
was
movie.
really devoting enough of my time to pre-production and still being able to edit a version of the first film that we were all happy with, that was under 3.5 hours, you know.
Yeah.
Orchestra, look at 7, please. You need to stop it sooner with the winds.
Oh, wow.
The hardest part
Like
about
full-on
a
orchestras.
post-production of a movie of this scale is that there are constantly changes happening while you're in post-production, while the sound crew are already working on the sound.
To one bar, please, violins for, tell me how long. Certainly for 41 and 2.
It's a
Trying to see
constantly
if I recognized
changing
it.
relationship between sound,
So that's
music,
the composer, huh?
and the visuals. And
props to you too,
very
dude.
often, the best results we only can anticipate when we get all 3 elements together and we can see and hear it.
8M4 take 371.
John will always take an early and longer version of the cut to work on, and he'll just record to the longer version. I remember one occasion we saw the cue played back of this long version of the arrival at Hogwarts, and Chris just turned to me and said, "You've got to go and put that back to that long version," because we'd shortened it because we thought it was too slow.
Oh,
but once
man.
we saw it with the music, it was brilliant.
Goosebumps number 9.
What's beautiful about what
Is
John
everything?
does is he creates these moments, it might be 6 or 7 notes that you remember
Yeah.
forever.
Oh.
And those first moments of the Harry
Goosebumps
Potter
number
score,
10.
which are still being played in the trailer to this day.
Yeah.
It's just, you know exactly where you are, you know exactly what
Yeah,
you're
there's
listening to. So I
only a
feel
handful
very
of films or
privileged
franchises that have
John
that.
Williams
Halloween,
experience.
It's been a
Nightmare on Elm
special
Street.
joy for me, particularly
That's it.
in the musical sense, that I can go perform with symphony orchestras. It seems like anywhere in the world we play material from Harry Potter and people relate to it.
Good luck, Harry Potter.
I was of the mindset that under the time constraints, I delivered the best picture I could at the time, and I was anxiously awaiting. I wasn't worried about the box office as much because I knew it being Harry Potter, people were going to show up. The question was, were people going to like it? And that pressure was
people were not going to like it
because I knew
they were
if I
going to love it.
failed, if my vision for the film failed, if the look of the picture failed, if the casting failed, all of those things that I was responsible for, if I was wrong about any of them, the
next 7 movies, yeah.
So what are you most
Man, that pressure.
The premiere. The glamorous part.
The first premiere was pretty crazy. It was the first time I ever had to really dress up for anything like that or be kind of glamorous, so I was kind of really, really crazy, feather boa. It was really strange, but I loved it.
What a dream
It
come
was
true.
Fun, and it was the beginning of everything.
The premiere was just
Goosebumps number 11.
It was just a really exciting time.
The premiere was a huge moment for them. I remember sitting in the balcony, and the place just erupted into applause, a standing ovation, which was fantastic. I can't lie, it was fantastic. So it was just a very emotional moment.
It's emotional for me. Just watching this 20 years later.
The following Monday, we were shooting Chamber of Secrets, so there was really no time for celebration or even enjoyment. We saw that the film was going to be a big hit, and then on Monday, we went right back to work on the second one.
I don't think we really did have time to take it in. We knew it had been successful because every so often somebody would come in and say, this is a record we've just broken, but we were kids, so we just kind of, oh, cool, brilliant, that's really cool, you know, great. We didn't know really what it meant. Yeah, it's bizarre, but yeah,
oh my God.
But looking back, it's seriously cool.
As it's been in my career, I had critics who loved the film, critics who were mediocre about the film, and it's an interesting element because it goes hand in hand with me, and I now accept it for what it is. But I saw this incredible 4-star review from Roger Ebert, and it just changed my life because he'd always been a little reluctant to really go there with some of my films, and he absolutely loved this film.
Let alone his.
And I felt, well, that's good. That really made me feel good.
I knew it was going to be a good film, but on the scale it's been, the success, just never anticipated that.
It's easy to write history looking backwards, isn't it? I mean, I could sit here now and say, yeah, I knew. I didn't have a clue. I loved it.
Man, neither did I put this franchise off for 23 years.
Those things that you love.
Nobody else, I maintain, could have started this series off in the way that Chris did. Because, you know, before you let people like Alfonso come in and shake things up, you have to have somebody who gives you a solid basis in the foundations of these characters and the locations and the sets. And that's what Chris did brilliantly.
I feel like a proud father when I see how wonderful these kids are in terms of being people and how great they are as actors. There are times when I wish I was there. It would just be wonderful to be able to have another Potter moment because that was an intensely magical experience.
On every film, there's always going to be aspects where I go, I wish. That being said, there are an awful lot of things in that first film where I go, wow, Chris and Stuart created this whole world, and Chris cast these kids and these adults, and he helped set us off on our way. And we wouldn't be sitting here, I don't think, if it wasn't for Chris.
I wouldn't be sitting here. Guessing that'll be the final Goosebumps. That was amazing. It was magical. Please tell me there's more of these. I don't want this franchise to end. I know there's obviously The Secrets of Dumbledore, all those, I think, 3 movies that I just got to get them first, then I'll watch them. And then I think on HBO Max there's a behind the scenes, or it's a 20th anniversary. And that one, I've had a couple people comment telling me to watch that, so I'll definitely do those in the future. So Harry Potter run is not over just yet. So, till next time, Mischief Managed.
The